Hi, Chris here. Now, when it comes to picking disc detainer locks, the most common question which is asked by beginners is what lock should I pick first? So I'm going to look at a few of the easier disc detainers and see which one would be a good choice. So the first one I picked is this kryptonite bike lock, just because I had it. Not a terrible choice. It doesn't have loads of discs, no false gates, anything like that. But it does use mid-stage tension, which makes it, a little bit trickier. There's an extra step in there that you need to understand. A lot of people choose one of these cheap Chinese locks. Got a key that looks like that, and fairly simple bitting on there. These are not a bad choice just because they're cheap, easy to pick up. You can buy them on eBay and Amazon, but there's a load of plastic in the core, and I think the discs are quite thin, so it doesn't give brilliant feedback, and it's quite easy to slip off the discs. Feels all a bit mushy, and it's maybe not the most fun pick. So although it's not particularly difficult, it's maybe not the best first lock for a beginner, other than being cheap. I've also tried one of these. This one says Magmouse on it, but again, it's one of those. It's like a Chinese core, which I think appears in quite a few different locks. The key looks a bit like that, and this one is a much better lock. It's actually quite a lot harder to pick than that as well. So I would recommend it, but maybe as a second or third disc detainer, because it's a little bit more difficult. Often recommended is the Zarker padlocks, and these ones I think are probably the best choice. Firstly, they're quite easy, but more importantly, the feedback they give is very clear and quite easy to interpret. So for someone looking to learn how to pick disc detainer locks, quite a different skill to picking pin tumblers, I think this is a great learning tool, and I would recommend this as a first lock to anyone starting to pick disc detainers. Right, so let's get these out of the way and get this picked. So this one's a 45mm one, the J45. They do 55mm ones as well, I think, a little bit bigger. Same core, so it doesn't really make any difference for a picker. Key looks a bit like that. So again, you've only got 3 cut depths, no cut, shallow cut, deep cut. They've all got 7 discs, and they all have an uncut bit of key on the last disc, so they can all be tensioned from the back. But everyone, or almost everyone, will be using a Sparrow's tool and be tensioning off the first disc, and then will probably need to counter rotate that, but that's fine. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so not essential but helpful is turn everything clockwise as far as it will go. Now you could go front to back. I'm going to start at the back just because it's a little bit easier to learn what a correctly positioned disc feels like if you start at the back and you know that last disc is now correctly positioned as far clockwise as it will go. So I'm picking this in hand. You might want to pick it in a vise. I would always recommend doing it horizontal, just because then you can let go of the pick tip and you're not trying to manage it. Okay, so I've just turned the pick tip and pulled it back into the bottom of the last disc, and then I'm going to turn it until it drops into that disc. There we go, it's dropped into that disc. So now you can feel that disc. I can feel motion of the pick tip within the disc, and then a little bit of movement with a bit of friction on it, which is the disc turning up to the limit of the gate. So that is what a set disc feels like. Okay, I've just dropped off that disc into the next spacer gap, onto the next disc up. Yeah, again, that one is in a gate, that's great. And into the next disc. Okay, so I can move the tip within the disc, but then there's no motion of the disc, so that is being held in place by the sidebar, so I'm going to turn that. Right, so that, just checking that is now in a gate. That's all good. next disc up. Yep, that one is in a gate already, so leave that alone. That one is binding, so I'm going to move that on. It's now in a gate. That one's binding. Now in a gate. I don't know if you saw there was a bit of movement on the tensioner. I think I'm now at the front of the lock. So the only disc which is out of position now is the one I've tensioned off, disc 1. So I'm going to put the pick tip back to the back of the lock, where I know there's one which needs to go to full rotation. I'm loading that up with the pick tip, counter rotate disc 1. And there we are. Zarker, perfect. First disc detainer open.